It's as if Disney has been listening to me waxing poetic on my YouTube channel. Just kidding. But we do have some big news, so big that I am patching it again on a work night. And that is that a brand new attraction, or returning attraction, depending how you look at it, is returning to Disney's Hollywood studios, and that is the magic of Disney animation. Let's get into it. Remember about a month ago when Disney randomly decided to give us a first look into the Walt Disney Feature Animation Studios Florida building that actually still exists and is still operational, but is not a working studio anymore at Disney's Hollywood Studios theme park? Now it's looking like that wasn't so random after all. But for those of us that were concerned that the building was either being torn down or Disney was going to do something big with Animation Courtyard that sort of erased, for lack of a better word, that history, we can relax and actually kind of breathe a sigh of relief because I think Disney has been listening to us after all. Maybe not so much me, but one can dream. And that is because they are bringing back the Magic of Disney animation attraction, revamped, sort of reimagined, based on the Disney Once Upon a Studio short film that is now on Disney Plus. And they're also going to rename the whole Animation Courtyard area and spruce it up. In case you didn't know, Animation Courtyard is this small section at Disney's Hollywood Studios that houses the new Little Mermaid, well, the new reimagined Little Mermaid stage show, a Disney Junior Dance Play Area show, and also currently Star Wars Launch Bay. In my older video, I get all into the history of this area and the old Magic of Disney animation experience. I'll link that down below and won't bore you with all those details here. But just know that former animation attraction was replaced with Star Wars Launch Bay after the Walt Disney Animation Florida Studios animation studio actually shut down, right? So we've had Star Wars Launch Bay there for a while, and of course that area has been sort of a third area for Star Wars in addition to Galaxy's Edge, in addition to Star Tours. And in recent years it hasn't been the most popular, and people have sort of wondered what's going to happen with this land. Again, now we know. Star Wars Launch Bay is officially being replaced with the Magic of Disney animation attraction. Again, same name as the former attraction that was there before Star Wars Launch Bay, but we're getting some new experiences. Before we talk about experiences, we have to talk all about the building that's going to house the experience. And this is important for many reasons. The first is that it's going to be made to look reminiscent of the iconic Roy E. Disney Animation Building in California, where Disney Animation Studios still exists. That's a big deal. Secondly, they're bringing back Mickey's sorcerer hat. That's right, the huge deal sorcerer's hat that in a way used to be at Disney Hollywood Studios before is now coming back in a new iteration. I think regardless of how it's going to look or regardless of the iteration, people were excited because there was something so special and emblematic about Hollywood Studios with that sorcerer's hat. I never got to visit the theme parks when it was there. This is a big deal for us Disneyers, and I cannot wait to visit it. And I won't have to wait too long. I'll tell you when it's going to open pretty soon. So the story behind the attraction is that the animators have temporarily stepped away, but the building is still buzzing with activity because the characters have come to life, and of course, they're ready to play. Inside the Magic of Disney animation, you will interact with what Disney is calling silly takes on iconic Disney animation headquarters. There's going to be many different studio departments, but this time the characters themselves have taken over as part of this interactive experience. Now note the difference. Like I said in my video that I'm going to link down below, the former experience was one where it was sort of museum-y and interactive in that you watched actual animators animating. This is going to be a little bit different and not have that same touch there, but they're sort of bringing that sort of realism and reframing it in a sort of more magical way. Other features include the portraits coming to life just before your eyes, kind of like in the Once Upon a Studio short that I mentioned earlier. And of course, you're going to have the opportunity to actually draw and learn some animation. This is a huge deal because guests used to be able to do this at the Magic of Disney animation attraction in its former iteration. Now, there are some areas where you can still do those types of activities. What I'm thinking of right now is the animation experience over there at Conservation Station Animal Kingdom. But while that is a unique and awesome experience, there's something so, for lack of a better word, special about it happening at Hollywood Studios, where there was actually an animation studio and at a park that's themed to sort of films. And of course, with Disney, that means animation. So this is exciting. I cannot wait to try it out. And of course, to take my kids there. Speaking of kids, one cool thing about this update we're getting is, in addition to those experiences that I mentioned earlier, is that there's going to be a Drawn to Wonderland indoor playground geared towards smaller children. This is going to have an oversized flower garden, musical instruments, and a Mad Tea Party playset. And I'm going to get into my final thoughts eventually, but I've been wanting more kid-friendly experiences at Hollywood Studios. The fact that they are doing this, I think, is a big deal, and it's going to be a major draw for families who are deciding which parks to go to when planning their Walt Disney World trip. Another cool fun fact for all of us diehard Disney nerds is that the Alice in Wonderland concept art that's inspiring this Drawn to Wonderland play area is inspired, of course, by concept art drawn by the Disney legend herself, Mary Blair. So, of course, any mention of Mary Blair, that's a big deal and a unique way to weave in some Disney history in more ways than one. Also important is we're getting more than just this Disney attraction. We are going to get a whole new revamped animation courtyard area, and it's also going to be called something different. This area is now going to be referred to as the Walt Disney Studios. You see here how they're trying to, again, bring back more of that studio feeling, of that focus on feature films and animation, things that are so important to the Disney brand and to sort of Disney's reputation as a whole in American culture. And so this new land is going to be completely changed. It's going to be reformatted. Now, it's not going to be a brand new like expansion or anything, but based on the concept art, it looks like there's going to be more open avenues and places for people to gather and actually sit, some seating areas. There's going to be more trees out of there to give it a more natural, welcoming feel. It looks like there's sort of an outdoor space for people to sort of just hang out and maybe let kids sort of run around, different from the indoor player area that I described earlier. If you look closely at the concept art, it looks like there is going to be the archway that has the Hollywood Studios sign in its current form is going to be taken down. I don't see an archway there. It looks like it's going to be just much more open, much more connected to the sort of hub of Hollywood Studios and just more welcoming. You know, I think that Hollywood Studios suffers from the layout. It's sort of scrunched up and there's lots of like starts and stops and sort of dead ends. I think they're going to open up the flow and make this place more welcoming within its own little unit and area, but also with regards to how it connects with the rest of the theme park. So I cannot complain about that. In the announcement about this update, Disney says that we're going to be able to explore studio grounds in the courtyard area and that families can take a break, play, relax, or snack on tasty treats under lush trees. It's a big deal for those of us that have kids. And now the good news, this is opening relatively soon. This is going to be coming next year in 26, although we don't have a confirmed date, but that is a pretty quick turnaround in terms of Disney's operation and construction with regards to latter years. This is going to close. Animation Courtyard, as it stands, is closing pretty soon to make way for it. And that is on September 25th, 2025. So if you want to go to Launch Bay or see Animation Courtyard as it exists, then you can go before September 25th. But while it's closed, you can still see The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure show, and you could still experience Walt Disney Presents, the little museum that is just next door at Disney's Hollywood Studios, which if you haven't done yet, I highly recommend, and we'll be making a video about pretty soon. And last thing, the Disney Junior Play and Dance Show will be getting a revamp, but we don't have any updates about the new show. So that's also pretty exciting. Are they going to bring Bluey? I'm not so sure, so stay tuned for that. All right, so my thoughts. In case you can't tell, I am thrilled about this update. I think it was much needed for many reasons, primarily that Star Wars Launch Bay and Animation Courtyard were sort of a dead end. We weren't seeing much activity there. And also, like I mentioned earlier, and like I've sort of gone on about in various videos, Hollywood Studios has lacked some true kid-friendly areas for years now, especially when compared to the other Walt Disney World theme parks. And by kids, I mean younger kids. And so it's not necessarily a top draw for families. And I think Disney is recognizing that, and that these additions and updates and enhancements are just that. And I think they are welcome for most people, even those that don't have children. Also, I'm not super surprised by this focus on sort of the Disney studios. If you think about it, at Disneyland Paris, they renamed Walt Disney Studios Park, the second park there, to Disney Adventure World. But as part of those updates, they're sort of revamping this main area that is made to look like old Hollywood and harken back to sort of the studio and animation era and sort of golden Disney era, so to speak, within the Walt Disney World Company. So looking at those things, looking at their acknowledgement of Walt Disney feature animation recently, and the signs were kind of there, but I think people were expecting something bigger or not expecting anything at all because of the Monsters, Inc. update coming to the theme park in the future. So yeah, I'm super excited about this. Like I said, if you follow me for a while, you know I've been complaining about this. I actually recently talked about this specific area and updates and things that we're looking for and how it impacts my trip on an episode of That Park Life podcast, which I can link down below if you're interested in listening to that or giving them a follow. I like the idea of a mini land sort of theme towards animation. I like the idea of nostalgia dictating a Disney decision. Like I said, I'm not saying they're listening specifically to me, Wouldn't that be nice? But I think they're listening just to fans generally and watching attendance and watching what people do when they go there. And I think that the type of visitors now are really sort of demanding an experience that's unique to Disney and focused on animation, and that harkens back to yesteryear. I think this sort of checks all of those boxes. Now, not to sound too nerdy, but another thing I'm excited about is that I think this is going to offer a third place of sorts. And if you're not familiar, the idea of a third place is a concept of, there's a place to gather and to hang out that is outside of one, your home, or two, your place of work. So it's a third space after that. And so at Walt Disney World, in this analogy, your resort is your home and the attractions, I guess, are your job, right? And so there's a need of that third space that doesn't require lightning lane, doesn't require waiting in line, and that is not super high stress and a little slower in terms of pace. And so if you think about comparisons, the Journey of Moana at Epcot is a good example of, in my opinion, a third space at Disney World, or Conservation Station at Animal Kingdom, or, Tom Sawyer Island at Magic Kingdom. Well, never mind about that one, but you get what I'm saying, jokes aside. And so I think this is going to serve that function really well, and I think really be appreciated by fans of all ages. One question remains though: is there going to be any other sort of expansion in this land, or is this it? I think a lot of people were speculating that Animation Courtyard was going to be sort of completely blasted away to make way for something big, some big new experience and some new land. And I don't know anymore. This could be a stopgap measure, this mini land, and these updates focused on animation for several years as other big construction updates other parts of Hollywood studios or other theme parks such as Animal Kingdom getting the huge Tropical Americas retheme. Or this could be just a focus on animation that stays there for much longer than that. We don't know, but I will leave that speculating to a future video. All right. Thanks again for nerding out with me. Tell me all of your thoughts about the return and the reimagining of the magic of Disney Animation Attraction. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and yeah, see you real soon.